Town Council meeting, the Town Council unanimously directed staff to prepare an ordinance repealing Ordinance 26-539 in its entirety. Because Ordinance number 26-539 required a recommendation from the Zoning and Design Review Board before Town Council consideration and adoption, an ordinance repealing that ordinance must follow the same procedures under the Equal Dignity Rule. So with that, staff is recommending that the ZDRB consider adoption of resolution number 26-032, recommending the Town Council adopt an ordinance repealing ordinance number 26-539. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
Or comments? So before you do, with respect to the future of the commons and the repeal.
Is this a question or a comment?
A comment.
Let's wait for public comment first, and then we'll have the. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Questions? All right. This is going well. All right.
Well, I do have a question, actually. So the when the petition is filed, I mean, was there specific language in the petition in terms of, or was it just a blanket statement of, you know, a number of signatures that determine that is against? Like, is there a statement or anything that gets summarized as to the reasons?
I'm going to defer that question to our town clerk.
If you give me a moment, I can pull it up. But I don't believe the actual petition had any language about a rationale behind it.
It was just, don't do this. Here are signatures.
Pretty much.
Okay. I was just curious if that's, and it may not be required. I was just sort of curious because I didn't get presented with it. So, okay.
Good question.
If you would like me to read it into the record, I can read the title for the referendum.
Sure, if you have it.
Yeah.
Okay. We, the undersigned, are duly registered and qualified voters in the town of Yountville, California, hereby protest the adoption of Town of Yountville Ordinance number 26539. And then it reads the ordinance language. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Yountville, California, repealing and replacing Section 17.08.010, adding Chapter 17.46, C, Commons, and amending Section 17.08.05, 17.156, 17.303, 17.162.020, zoning of the Yountville Municipal Code and amending the Yountville zoning map to establish the common zoning district. We request the ordinance number 26539 be repealed by the Town Council or otherwise submitted to a vote of the people pursuant to the California Elections Code.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hillary.
And then I guess, so that basically means the previous zoning stays intact, right?
That's correct. It reverts back to what it was before.
Okay. And I guess my question is, what was, I guess, the intent of the zoning and how is it different than the current zoning in place? And the reason I ask is, because we're reverting back. So what does that mean?
So the ordinance that was passed essentially created the common zoning district, which had a list of standards that basically related directly to that site as far as accommodating workforce housing, civic uses, and those types of things. So now it reverts back. The site is essentially split into two pieces. The western side is public facilities, and the eastern side is parks and playfields. So it reverts back to that zoning designation.
Right. And with respect to the housing element and RENA and whatnot, does the current zoning, as it stands, given that it's being reverted, how does that affect our qualifications? Can we still submit?
Well, so there's a lot to that, but I'll basically say that there is a potential to put workforce housing on the public facilities portion of the site.
Okay. Because I think the reason I ask, and this is sort of a commenty style question, sort of context to the question is, we have a pretty big responsibility as a town, as do all municipalities in California, to meet housing requirements. And I'm going to speculate that whatever petition was signed or the people against it aren't in opposition to doing something like that. And it would be, I think, a unfortunate setback for our conditional approval if the zoning sort of rescindment would prevent our ability to meet those conditional requirements. So I guess the question is, can we meet the conditional approval requirements even with the zoning reverting back?
Hard to say, possibly. It'd depend on what the council ultimately decides to do with the site.
Got it. So in essence, I mean, we read a lot of headlines and news about towns sliding into default, having their zoning permissions actually removed by the state, and now Yountville seems to have entered the ranks of those headlines.
Not necessarily. So we do have a certified housing element to date. There are a list of programs within that housing element that basically have commitments that the town has made. We necessarily haven't defaulted on any of those to date. We still have a RENA allocation number that runs through 2031 that we can still work towards, and there are other sites in town where development is possible.
Okay. Development without any further rezoning.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Question.
Aaron, to help clarify, so our requirement for required housing in Yountville, the state requirement for required housing, the drop dead date, for lack of a better term, is 2031. And by 2031, we have to have not constructed, but at least pulled 72 building permits for housing, correct?
That's our RENA allocation number.
Yeah, that's our
72.
allocation.
Correct.
And in that 72, it's broken up into very low, medium, and moderate. So with the moderate, of course, being the larger number of the required allocation, I think it's 30.
That's correct.
So the Commons gives us an opportunity, of course, to address our required allocation even after 2031. But in the 30 that are moderate, there's no reason that those couldn't be built on the Commons in order to have higher cash flow, in order to have a higher return on investment if we want a capital partners. Is that correct?
That's a possibility.
That's what you see. We could have a mix in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I clarify one thing? Is it by 2031 that we have to have permits pulled, or we have to have legislated properties that are available to build said properties?
So there's various components of this. So essentially one step of it so I could backtrack a little bit. So previous to the sixth cycle housing element, fifth cycle and prior to that, essentially all you had to show the state is you had the proper zoning in place to accommodate your RENA number. So you had the number of sites, the number of acreages that could accommodate the number of units given to you. Starting with the sixth cycle, they built in more provisions, basically because the state's tired of towns saying they're going to build stuff and not building it.
Right.
It basically kind of forced local jurisdictions' hands. And so as part of that, now there are, as I just mentioned, a series of programs contained within that element that require us to do certain things within that time period.
And that time period is less than 2031?
No, it's 2031.
Oh, 2031, okay.
Well, I mean, there are things within the programs that are required to be done before then.
Yep.
So each of the programs has a time frame noted to it. So those do vary throughout the 8-year cycle. Our number is 72 units, and so if we don't hit that number at the end of the cycle, there are potential consequences from the state.
And we're currently at a handful.
We've given out 12, so we have 60 left.
Okay.
And there are in the Oak and Vine.
Yeah, there are some.
There's one workforce housing unit in there. Those other units would qualify under the moderate, correct?
No, those would be above moderate. So
Above
those,
moderate.
yeah, which is essentially market rate. And then the Humboldt mixed use project also is 5 units with one affordable too. So there's more units coming. We believe in the near future.
Okay.
I did want to clarify. You said workforce. It's low. It's income level.
I said
okay.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Workforce. Pardon me. Yeah, workforce. Thank you.
low income.
Low income.
Low income.
Yeah,
Deed
low,
restricted,
yeah,
yeah.
those are
Not
low
workforce.
income.
No,
But-
there's
but-
no
but-
such thing technically as workforce. It's just sort of income levels as far as the state. I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
because
the low, and the moderate.
Yeah.
But all of those that are in the works would fall within our 72 required units,
That's correct.
just in different.
Income
different-
categories.
Different sections of the
Yep.
requirements.
Yep.
But to add clarification to that, it means that we're meeting the goals for moderate or higher levels, but not the lower levels. So we're going to need to
Fine.
figure out how to do that.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Public comment. Are there people that would like to stand up and make a public comment related to this item? Not seeing any hands. Okay. We will close the public comment. I guess it falls back to us to discuss this. Does anyone? I kind of feel like it's a formality that we're essentially telling the council that we are advising them to repeal the ordinance. But I also feel like I would love to say on the record that I felt like we were doing the right thing when we told them to adopt it.
I agree with that. I think we should be on the record.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my sense was, what I heard attending some of these sessions was, and again, it's hard to generalize because, a dozen people can go up each with one topic, and that doesn't mean there's 12 topics amongst 12 people. It's one topic each. So, but the general sentiment that I gathered was, and I've seen this phenomenon in sort of the workplace, is that the further along something gets, the more interest develops in it. And it's sort of, they sort of work in opposition. You want lots of participation early so that as things move along, it's inclusive of people's feedback. But usually the opposite happens. People are like, oh, wait, it's coming. I should start, paying attention. I'm not saying that's what happened to everyone, but I heard feedback of like, this seems to be happening very quickly. And, what happened, even though it was a 2-year process up until then. I do think that there is always a little bit of confusion between what is proposed, what is directionally being set, saying, hey, this is hypothetical. And we've experienced this a lot where a property will say, okay, well, this can allow 3 stories. This is what it could look like. Everyone's like, oh, I don't like that design. They're saying, well, this isn't the design. It's what it could look like, right? So it's hard to grasp hypotheticals or conceived directions. And when you're presented with information, it feels like fact. And I think that's where trust starts to come in and the progressive disclosure that invariably happens through the life of a project. I would say I hadn't heard, and I haven't talked to everyone exhaustively, but anyone against the idea of doing this. Like everyone's like, oh, this seems like a great idea. And a lot of care went into civic uses, dog parks, public facilities. I mean, I think the reason we approved it in the first place is a tremendous balance of requirements. I mean, so many things were considered and put into the plan and incorporated in the zoning language. And there were sessions, but I think issues came up, right? I heard, things like parking and unit sizes and other things. And I guess somewhere along the way, enough people didn't feel heard or felt the need to step in and basically stop or pause the efforts that had been underway. And so my suggestion, for what it's worth, or thought, is we should list out what are the issues that seem to be showstoppers amongst a segment of the population, and let's make sure that we attack those head on and make people feel heard, right? At the end of the day, if people, if the feedback is incorporated, even if it can't be acted on, if it's done so thoughtfully, the hope is that we come to some kind of consensus on some of these, showstopper issues. And presumably, when those issues are addressed in some way, shape, or form in a language that people understand, it should, move forward right at this point. I think it's just really unfortunate that there was a need to put a stop into something that I think was carefully considered. But the question is, what can this collective body learn from that? Sit down with people and say, and sometimes it isn't just what is being said, but how that trust is built, so that people don't see one thing and then hear another, or question the intentions and motives of anybody on either side, for that matter, right? So, and I think at the end of the day, we're here because we believe in Yountville. We also know that Yountville is evolving and changing over time. I mean, I like to ask the question, what year do you think Yountville was perfect that you would then freeze it for all time? And I'm not sure anybody would have the same answer or even want to pick that year. So at the end of the day, it comes down to believing in what Yountville can become. We can be an example, I think, for Napa and for the state, and how we work together and how we listen, and that our motives are the same, which is to create an amazing space that people want to visit or live in. So I would just implore that we don't take sides or choose factions, and really sit down and say, what is motivational for everybody involved, especially the stakeholders and the businesses, and then we present that back in a way that's really transparent and clear, and then create alignment. I mean, it's our only shot.
I would add to that it's important to recognize that if we do list out the issues and then we come up with solutions that solve many of them, that we don't put too much pressure on this process or on this site to solve every issue. This isn't our only chance at it, and there are issues that get resolved in doing things. Once you start to do something, issues that support that effort come to fore. And so it's important not to put everything into solving this as like the last chance to get it right. And if we screw it up, it's over. It's not, I don't think it's that black or white.
Yeah, I concur with both Stephen and Michael, but I think the Commons and we as your zoning board believe in the project. We passed it because we believe in the Commons and what it can do for the community, and the Commons is an opportunity that a town like ours doesn't normally get. So I think there was maybe confusion in the beginning, and I will certainly tell anybody that wants to listen, I have an open mind. I'm a girl. I have an opinion. I can always change it. But if anybody has any questions about what's going on and they want to call me, if I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer. But to have to revert all the way back to where we were is probably the right thing to do in order to get back on track. But all that having been said, I think, yeah, that although there was a lot of input of what people want, I think that down the road that we need to make the financial aspect of the financial load, whether it's with a capital partner or it's determined to be done by the town, has to be part of the pre-planning of the project, as opposed to building a project and then, you go look at a car or look at a house, you're already in a budget. And I think some confusion was as they were just giving ideas that was the project. And so I think we'll just, take a breath and help the city council, give them direction, not only as a zoning board, but as citizens, so that when the next chance for entitlement comes, that everybody's happy with them before they're done, that there's an opportunity to know what our return on our investment is as citizens, as a capital partner. And the city council, I have great faith in them being able to work with Aaron and Ken and whoever's involved in putting that together so that it is a viable project and that it improves and enhances the community for everybody. And I'm really happy to be a part of this project. I'm sorry that we're, kind of taking a step back, but we will go forward with a very positive and empowered mind from the community and from people that have given us input, and for all that, I'm thankful.
Great.
Let me make an additional comment about that. First, I support all three of what you said. I think, thank you. I think more importantly what you were saying, Michael, about the different meetings, the workshops, everything that people were involved in, as many as I had been to, it's surprisingly how few people actually were at those, and or when I say that, really in relevance to the amount of people that are against what we've already been doing all of this for. So my point is, hopefully it's encouragement for everybody that's against it on any level, that when we get a second crack at it, for lack of better words, that there's real participation and there's real thoughtfulness that goes into how many people have to be involved in this and what it really takes to get this thing accomplished, as opposed to getting it to this point and then having almost kind of like a mutiny, about where we started literally 2 years ago. That's a long time for us all to be sitting in a room together. We're all very busy people. I think we can contest to that. We all have professions and everything, and I think doing something like this for the town of Yountville is absolutely worth the time. That's why I'm certainly on the board. More importantly, I think, again, whether for it or against it, you have to participate, and you can't wait to the last moment to kind of shoot the gun. So let's go again.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody have a motion?
I guess I'll
With
go.
note two, you don't need to read the entirety
No,
of them.
thank you. I was committing it to memory, so that I could, no, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 26032 as written in the agenda.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next item on our agenda is item B, receive a report on proposed amendment to the Zoning and Design Review Board bylaw. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the administrative issues. That's not the right issue. Sorry. Give me a second. Item B is, here, I got it. Consideration and adoption of Resolution 26033, recommending the Town Council conditionally approve a use permit amendment to allow outdoor seating on the rear patio and garden and increase the permitted number of special events with amplified music, and recommending approval of a sign permit for a projecting sign at 6764 Washington Street, and finding the project exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. Is this you, Erin?
It is,
Okay.
yes. Good evening, Chair Miller, members of the board. Item 8B is a project submitted by Ponchas for their property at 6764 Washington Street. The project is comprised of two applications for the board's consideration, the first being a use permit amendment to allow outdoor seating on the rear patio and garden and increase the permitted number of special events with amplified music, and the second being a sign permit for a projecting sign. Following staff's review of the application materials, we have found that the project is exempt under CEQA, specifically sections 15301 regarding minor alterations, restoration, and additions to existing structures, and section 15061B3, the common sense exemption. The subject site is located on Washington Street between Madison and Padroni, and it is zoned Old Town Commercial Zoning District and located within the OTC Old Town Commercial Land Use Designation. These two designations promote, or encourage, I should say, projects which maintain the historic character of the existing commercial buildings along the North Yountville corridor, and as well as those that promote the relationship between those commercial structures and the street and encourage pedestrian activity. The development pattern in this area, it's a traditional corridor development pattern where you have commercial uses fronting along Washington Street. And you can see when you start at Highway 29 and you move to the east, across the first block of commercial uses over to the subject site and on, you'll see there's that transition in scale and intensity of use moving east to west, going all the way from the highway to then the adjacent historic neighborhoods next to the site. Existing entitlements for Ponchas include a resolution to grant their original use permit, which was approved back in 1993, and then the most recent entitlement, which was the resolution 244308, which was approved by the council to grant a use permit amendment and design review for the remodel and restoration of the bar. Some important pieces of the use permit as it stands now. The bar currently has a maximum capacity of 51 guests, and the use permit approved a non-conforming parking ratio, which was 6 spaces, including 1 accessible stall for those 51 seats. The existing use permit does not include provisions for outdoor seating, nor does it include provisions for special events, which is why those 2 items are part of the amendment today. And then lastly, there was a Washington Street activation permit that was recently approved for the site to allow the use of the front patio along Washington Street. The existing concessions of the site include the subject building, which is 1,282 square foot. It's built to the street, and it features covered patios located at both the front and back. I do want to point out that there is mature landscaping along the far eastern portion of the site, as well as a wood privacy fence that, similar to the other commercial uses in this area, provides some buffering to those adjacent residential uses to the east. Okay, so looking at the first component of the use permit amendment as proposed, the applicant / owner is requesting use of the rear patio and garden for outdoor seating during regular operations. You can see in blue there on the screen, that is the subject area in question. As proposed, there would be a maximum capacity of 40 guests on the patio, and the hours of operation would be 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. They have requested the ability to feature non-amplified or acoustic music on the site, and that would occur on Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And as part of this request, there would be no increase in the permitted decibel levels, and so the application would be subject to the regular regulations for impact on adjacent uses as required by the Yountville Municipal Code. The second component of the use permit amendment as requested is a proposal to host 4 special events on the rear patio and garden each month with a maximum of 150 guests in total. These would occur on Saturday or Sunday from 2 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., and they would feature amplified music and noise, which would likely be in excess of those allowed during the most regular hours. Proposed improvements to go along with the expanded use of the patio include portable furnishings to allow different configurations of the site with seating for 32 and a fire pit. They're proposing to utilize low-level string lighting and plan to include low-profile boundary features around the perimeter of the turf garden area, and the intent for that is to keep the guests closer to the center of the site and prevent them from migrating closer to the east, where they could potentially create more of a noise impact to those abutting neighbors. In addition to the improvements on the previous slide, the applicant/owner is also proposing to further delineate the existing gravel parking lot by adding wheel stops at 4 of the gravel parking stalls, which would bring the total number of stalls to 8. So further diving into the parking situation, the existing ratio, which is approved non-conforming, includes 6 spaces, including 1 accessible stall, again for 51 seats. The proposed ratio would be 8, including 1 accessible stall for a total capacity of 91, should the outdoor space be at full capacity while the interior space is at full capacity. And then for special events, again, 8, including 1 accessible stall, but rather than 91, it would be for a total capacity of 150. The applicant owner proposes the use of private group transport to mitigate potential parking impacts during those events. And in addition to that strategy for parking mitigation, the applicant has also recently enrolled in the employee parking management program, which will allow the between 2 and 6 staff that are on site, depending on the need, to utilize off-site parking marked for employee use, so would free up those spaces that they previously were utilizing. Okay, and then moving to the second component of the project. The applicant owner is requesting a sign permit to approve a projecting sign located on the building's south parapet wall. It is 22 inches in circumference, and it is wired for internal illumination. You can see pictures of the sign there. And then I did want to point out that typically the ZDRB would be able to provide final approval on a projecting sign permit. However, due to the town's concurrent processing policy, this application, along with the use permit, will be heard by town council at your recommendation for their final approval. Did want to point out that applications to erect projecting signs may be approved when the findings outlined in the code are established, including one which states that the sign may not be internally illuminated. So although it is currently wired to have this feature, staff is recommending a condition of approval that would prohibit the use of this illumination feature in order to allow the findings to be met for a projecting sign. Okay, and you can see that the recommendation there. So you've received the staff report, and I'm glad to answer any questions that you have. Go from there.
I have a question. So the illuminated arm sign can't be illuminated from the interior, or but can it be exterior lit, just like a sign on any other restaurant?
So it cannot be internally illuminated. That is correct. It potentially could be externally illuminated. We do have a requirement in the code that requires downlighting, so it would have to be like an arm light that wraps down like this. I don't know the way in which it's situated on the building, if that would be possible, but definitely something that we could look at should the applicant decide to go that route in the future.
You said that our recommendation is to the council. Why is that different in this case than it is in other cases? Isn't it typically we are able to approve them at this meeting, but this time we're recommending it to the council?
For use permit of this type, it requires
for the
council.
use permit.
Yes,
okay, and because it's coupled with the signage.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we have to process the two concurrently, and so the code states that the highest level of authority for approval has to receive the application.
That makes sense. Okay. Okay. Just to clarify, before us tonight, we're not making a decision about whether or not it's able to be lit from the inside. It's only a recommendation to not have it lit from the inside, or to approve it without being lit.
I might defer to the assistant town attorney regarding the findings required and whether or not that would be possible. It would require an exception, and so this would be effectively you would need to, the board would need to be able to make the findings to allow for an exception of the code.
And is the applicant asking for that?
We have Scott Lewis here, and
Yeah.
he is prepared to speak afterwards. I can
Okay.
have him answer
Okay.
that question.
We'll ask him that question.
The sign's already there, right? Is that, so is this sort of in, so are we approving the sign after the fact, or, okay, I'm just checking on that. Okay,
Right. So this is not included in the 2024 remodel.
I see. So the sign made its way in, somebody said, wait, that sign wasn't in there, so we're now,
Correct.
okay, backfilling, okay.
So the sign, I walked with Mr. Lewis the property and the sign and went through the project earlier today. So the sign is currently hanging. If it's illuminated, would it be the only illuminated sign in all of Yountville, or are there others?
I cannot speak to it being the only illuminated sign. I cannot think of one off the top of my head, but I can tell you it would be the only illuminated projecting sign.
And projecting, you mean?
Off the building.
Sticking, yeah, more than.
Oh, this hanging off,
yes,
hanging off,
yes.
as it's hanging off the building. It's not attached to the building.
Correct. So if it's signs that are in excess of 8 inches off the wall are require a special permit for projecting, which prohibits them from also being internally illuminated.
So if it's attached to the building, he doesn't need a permit, correct?
He could, if it met all of the other conditions of the sign ordinance, apply for a permit that could be approved at the staff level if it was a standard wall sign.
And why did the staff recommend not approving the sign?
Because this is not a standard wall sign, it is a projecting sign. Wall signs cannot be in excess of 8 foot off of the wall to which they, or 8 inches, I'm sorry, off of the wall to which they are attached. And so because the sign comes off of the building, let me go to the images here. So if the sign were to sit flush on the wall,
It's actually,
There it is.
if it were to be flush against the wall, it could be approved at the staff level. But because it projects beyond the wall, that is why it requires the projecting sign
Because it
permit.
hangs off the hanger.
Correct.
Is a reason that you, and did you not recommend it be done because it wasn't within the code, or?
I think what happened was they built it, put the sign up, and then it wasn't originally approved, and now we're kind of now approving it potentially after the fact, right?
No, I
But they're
understand that.
recommending, they're not saying don't do the sign, they're just saying don't light it up.
We're recommending approval with conditions.
It includes not lighting it up.
That's correct.
And I guess that's my question is why does, I'm just curious because I don't totally understand the concept. Why did staff approve it with no lighting?
That's what the code currently requires.
So they couldn't recommend?
Correct.
That's internal lighting, right? If
It's right, like a glowing orb, so it illuminates the surface from the inside.
Okay, so your recommendation was because that's how because it doesn't fit the code, not because there are other alternatives.
Correct.
But it's because that doesn't fit the code, so we can vote to accept it and recommend the acceptance of the sign being lighted, correct?
I'll just interject here that the exception findings that are incorporated to allow deviation from what your sign ordinance currently says, they are quite a high bar to meet. And I believe staff was under the impression that they were not aware of facts meriting making those exception findings. And I can try to summarize what those findings would entail. If you wanted staff to pursue that, it would be direction to come back, consider that, perhaps try to bring forth language with that exception. But again, the findings include that there are unusual circumstances applicable to that property that don't apply to other properties that necessitate granting them this exception out of fairness due to unusual circumstances that weren't created by the property owner, that the exception would not constitute a grant of special privilege to that property owner. Those kinds of findings are quite high, and I think staff's understanding was those cannot be met here.
Oh, okay.
And I would also say staff has been analyzing the sign code, and we've identified other areas for potential improvement. So at some point in the future, we could bring back amendments to the sign code that could potentially allow for the internal illumination, in which case they could just turn it on.
And then there can be a lighting party.
But
Okay.
it's the underlying premise is that there used to be a sign like that, and they're just putting it,
Yeah, my understanding is that's what we've heard. We haven't seen evidence that backs that up. So
Well, the premise is the old Ponchas used to have
an illuminated sign of some sort, but there hasn't been any evidence
Right.
produced.
Okay. Any
So
other
what's our
questions
job
for
on this
staff?
one? Are we saying, yes, you can have your sign, you can
No,
illuminate it on the inside?
there's two levels.
We have a
One is we
process.
can say no sign at all, yes to the sign but not illuminated is really probably our only two choices. But ultimately, we're making a recommendation to council, and ultimately it's their decision.
And we could recommend to council an illuminated sign, right, or no?
Technically, you could. The council may or may not be able to actually substantiate that with findings to
support our
to
recommendation.
actually adopt that.
Okay.
But we
that's what I
provide the
thought.
comments to council as well. And they might like your suggestion that we revisit the sign ordinance entirely to address that.
Okay.
Are there any questions about the special use permit? I don't have any. All right. Then, Scott, would you like to present anything, or do you have anything prepared to say?
Thanks, Hillary.
Hi, Scott Lewis from Ponches, 6764 Washington Street. Thank you for the time today. We're proposing something. Our goal with Ponches is to build something for the community. And I think that, if you've been there in the last few months, you've probably seen, I think you see a lot of locals coming there. I've had numerous people come to me and ask about, using the backyard, and this is something we didn't want to, we went ahead and built Ponches, and we tidied up the backyard because the backyard was really disastrous. It was a weed garden, if anything. And so obviously we've been waiting patiently to try and activate this because this is important, I think, not just for us, but I think it's a good focal point for the community. And we're trying to really give something back for locals here because there's not much left for locals anymore. And so the response has been tremendous, and that's kind of the whole idea behind it. We've had numerous people come to us for birthday parties or celebrations of somewhat, and being able to utilize the backyard, like under the right conditions with service people and everything, I think will add more to value to our community and what we're doing there. The sign, I will just say to you that when I've done some research on the sign, there was signs on the building for numerous years. When Ponches was falling apart, a lot of signs came down. There was some electrical running through at the top of that building, and it was used. I talked to an old gentleman there on Silverado Trail there a couple of months ago who told me it was the 2-spot before it was Ponches, which had a lot of illumination, both in signage and people and what it was. But with that said, I've built it in such a way that it can be unplugged. One of the things I would say to you that when I was looking for a light, the 2 years we were building out Ponches at the end of town in the middle of winter, it's the darkest place in town. And we have Christmas lights in town. But when you get down towards the end, it was kind of, and I was just like, okay, something it's like a beacon that says there is life in this town after 9 o'clock. So with that said, it's lit up. It's on a timer right now, and I will have it turned off, obviously. But it's at most during the winter, it's on for probably about 6-7 hours. It turns off at 2:30. And during the summer, it would be probably for about 4.5 hours. But I know it's a separate matter, and I'm willing to change or move things around to make it work whatever the town suggests.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Are there people in the public that would like to say anything about this? Michael Bork. Oh.
You go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'm Michael Bork, and if I could walk out of my front door and walk through the yard and the backyard of the people directly across from me, I could have a magical door and walk right into that space in the back. I really love the space. For myself, it's the ability to go out into the back behind there and actually have a conversation with somebody. It gets a little quite loud and boisterous inside with music and everything else like that. So I love being able to go outside, and I love the fact that I can sit out there with my dog. So, I love Ponches the way it is now. I love the sign. Whether you can light it up or not, I think the sign is a great sign. So I hope that you'll approve what they're doing. I think they're being quite successful, and I think that it would be natural for them, if properly done, to have some events in the evenings. Certainly there are other places we hear music from all the way down from the estate sometimes. So I don't really have any issues with that. And let me close by saying that I'm going to break the rules here a little bit and thank you for the comments that you made about the first part of this meeting. I'm very supportive of that, and I appreciate the wise words that you said, and I hope that will echo within the community. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Alan Tencher. I've actually had a beer outside with Michael, so I'm glad to see that we're getting all of our ducks in a row, including the sign and the outdoor serving. We are even closer than Michael to this. Right now, we enjoy a unique spot in town where we don't have pressure on parking from the French Laundry. I appreciate that there's a parking effort being made, but it would be very discouraging if this increased intensity of use found our neighborhood overrun with cars. 150 people is a lot. And I've often heard at the council, and I believe perhaps here, that when use permits are granted, there's a review period, sort of a proof of concept, and I would ask that you be sure to do that. We love Ponchas. We don't get there as often as we'd like, but we're very supportive, but just want to make sure that we're careful in granting these, that they don't negatively impact the neighborhood while serving the larger community. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, do you have anything to say to any of that?
On the parking, so when we talk about special service.
Thank you.
So when we come to these special events, talking about large numbers, my background comes from hotel management and planning and organizing. So you have my word that anything in excess of anything of that size would be carefully planned. We work closely with Bow Tours, Napa Valley Transportation. It would be a requirement. The parking is obviously a hot issue in Yountville, and trust me, I know this better than anyone. R&D has absolutely been on top of their parking. We've promoted that with our customers and told them, if you go to R&D, make sure, if you're going there, have lunch or have dinner and then come and have a drink. But otherwise, you cannot park over there. And so I think people are being pretty cognizant of it. We actively also use Uber, and we tell, use Uber to get from here. With any of these parties, that would be definitely a plan. And also part of the condition is to submit like our written proposal, how we're going to, 150 people would have to bring in bathrooms and so on and so forth. So we want to play by the rules and absolutely take care of the neighbors. So that is not my intention, but I do hear the concern.
Thank you. Can I ask a question about the special use permit that was granted to his neighbor at, is it Jessup, just down the street? We granted them a special use permit a couple of years ago. No? Okay. I won't ask it.
Well, you had something that was on my mind. I guess maybe I can ask a different question, which is, given that there was, I think it was a use permit that was expanded. I think they had one and they wanted to expand it.
Yep.
I guess thinking of that area, when applicants for events come in, do you consider like overlapping events? So if Jessup wants at the same time.
We certainly would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just not familiar with it, but yeah, you would say, hey, actually for that area that small, you wouldn't have concurrent.
Yeah, and there's traffic management plans, and I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that would go into that.
That was maybe, I think, what you were.
That's exactly where I was
Okay,
going.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's close the public hearing. Yes. Oh, sorry. We're reopening it. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm Margene Marciniak, and it's curious that we have a lot of North Yountville residents attending this meeting. And I guess I just want to re-emphasize the importance of the parking. And we live against the cemetery. And we also hear the music from the estate. We hear it very much from the community park. And for the most part, it's joyful to hear that because they're happy events. So I would just be glad that the rules are put in place for the time that's allowed and the decibels. And we do get parking in our corner of the world when there's big events. They're not there for long, and that's okay. The Easter egg hunt and fun things like that. And I think the last speaker touched on, or somebody touched on, the overlapping events. I think Parks and Rec a few years ago put in a plan that you had to space out these big events. So I think that's what just got suggested. Can we make sure that they don't overlap? Because that would really flood us.
And that's what they mean by conditional use. Yes, that's the condition, is that it's free and clear of other events in the proximity.
There's a condition that before each event, the operations need to submit to planning staff a plan that includes the number of proposed attendees, any features including live music, restroom facilities, parking management plan. All of that will come to us in advance, and then we can review.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Dalla Grappallo, a Yountville resident, and I'm here kind of representing my age group because we really can't be inside of Ponch's because of hearing aids or whatever. It's loud, and so we love the outdoors, and we want to make sure that we can have our parties outside. And for some of you, I don't know if you know Betty Jake, who's going to be 100 years old. I brought her there the other day, and the place was packed. But everyone in there was so nice. They just blazed a trail for her. She had about 5 people say, "Can I get you a drink? Can I get you a drink?" And she would be here tonight, but she's living down there now in the Meadows. So I told her I'd speak up for her. So anyhow, hopefully everything can be outside so we can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have a name for the patio. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Oh.
Hi, I'm Paul Frank. I wasn't expected to speak, but as my partners know, it's very hard for me to resist. So it's also very hard to add anything to what Scott has already said. But I want you to know it's really an honor to assist Ren and Scott as a small junior partner in preserving this part of Yountville's heritage. But as you know, it's more than just an iconic Yountville landmark. It's for decades been a gathering place for Yountville residents to have fun, for camaraderie, and just to celebrate being a Yountville. And, you know, as a meeting place, it's an ideal meeting place for Yountville to come together at friendly prices, just to have fun and to enjoy each other. And it's also an ideal place for birthdays, for anniversaries, for community meetings, for community presentations and gatherings, and just a place to have fun. So let the good times continue, and may we continue to celebrate being in Yountville. And of course, those things bring all the local businesses money and business, which is not bad either. So let the good times roll, and look forward to seeing you all in Ponch's.
Thank you.
I'm glad that was on camera because I feel that's going to make a highlight reel at some point on the top Ponch's timeline.
Okay. Anybody else? Last call. Oh, here we go.
because I wasn't here to speak about that, but I just want to say an experience. I'm Jennifer Brewster, Tug McGraw / I live off State Lane. I called Marilyn a couple weeks ago because I had a dear friend of ours that wanted to come to Poncha's and had 18 bridesmaids with them. And the bride she had a disability, and it was going to be very hard for her to be in there at 10 o'clock at night. And I want to give Ashley big kudos because I came down there in my pajamas and trench coats, as Val will tell you, to tell them that they were going to be late because the patio was so important for them to have. And I do want to just reinstate that it is part of us. And Rose would have probably taken care of parking for all of us, right? But I just want to say thank you for this incredible establishment that you brought back to this town. It's as equally as important for those veterans that are up there on the hill, but it's a beautiful space, and I support the outdoor because, like you said, the hearing aids, and I think people that, I even have a son with autism that is very sound, to have that outdoor experience, I think is critical and crucial. And I think what a beautiful thing, and light up that sign.
Thank you. All right, last call. All right, we're closing the public comment portion, and we will deliberate. Yes? Anybody?
Yeah, I would, I'd like to reiterate the quality of Ponchos when I was with Scott earlier today, that it is a landmark. It is for the community. It's a place we can all go to meet and greet. It's not it's not like the Thomas Keller Champagne Bar. It's affordable for all of us, and it's for us locals, and you've done a great job on the back patio. It's beautiful back there. It was very well thought out. It's inviting, and it's going to create lots of wonderful memories for our town that we will all have great feelings for being a part of the beginning of the new Ponchos.
Yes.
I agree.
Agreed.
I mean, it's the building, I think it was built in 1920, so it's 106 years ago. And then 100 years from now, it'll be sort of equal, right? They'll say, oh, chapter 1 was 100 years, chapter 2 is, we don't often think that far in advance, but, why not? And so I think it's special to be on both sides of it in this transition period, to think back to what it was and imagine what it's going to be for decades in the future. One comment on the sign. It's a nice sign and adds to the character, and personally, I don't have an issue with the lighting. I think it's also pretty dimly lit. It's not like a beacon. But I think the issue, obviously, is that it's the way the sign ordinance is written. So it's easier to just move it forward, grant the exception without the illumination to avoid complexities. And then there may be phrasing in the sign ordinance that says, like, dimly lit, or like there could be some language that could be introduced that would maybe bring it back. But for the sake of moving things forward, it would be a slight gain for an otherwise unnecessary set of administrative steps. That's my perspective on it in terms of how I'm reading it. And then, everyone seems really supportive of the events. I did just become 150 did seem like a lot, 4 times a month, but I think it's knowing that it's going to be carefully sort of managed and vetted, and it's not about, concurrency. I think, I would have thought like once a month, but this is large. Is that how I read it properly? It's up to 4 times a month, 150 for special events?
That is the request, 4 a month. 4
a month, okay, yeah. So ostensibly there could be, like, if nothing else is happening, you could have 4 in a row, in a particular 4 weekends in a row type of situation.
On a Saturday or Sunday.
On a Saturday or Sunday, okay. Yeah. There are other, is that consistent with other use permits? Is that fairly?
They're all over the place, and I would say that this is a maximum, so this is just allowing them the ability to do it. I don't know, Scott could speak to it, but I don't know how often they're actually going to have 4.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning the intent or what's going to happen. It's just that when we put stuff on paper, it's there, right? That's why I'm being mindful of it.
It is, but to the other gentleman's point, if we find that something's not working with the use permit, we can always bring them back.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Does the current permit application address the special events parking and the bringing in of transportation for guests, or is that something we would add in our recommendation to the council?
The current conditions of approval as recommended by staff do not include a requirement to bring in private transportation. That is something that you all could discuss. But currently, that it is proposed in the project, but it is not a requirement. We would be relying on the parking management plan submitted as a part of the special events permit in advance of each event, staff reviewing that and making adjustments to the plan as required. But certainly, the board sees fit, that could be a condition of approval.
Yeah, the only issue I see is, the parking issue for, 150 people, and making sure that they're not parking in neighborhoods.
It's always curious to me to be talking about parking at a drinking establishment. Seems counterintuitive. I would feel comfortable myself with Scott being given a period of review and managing the parking and managing the numbers of people in a way that he sees fit, that then also satisfies the neighbors. And if it becomes a problem, it comes back for review.
I think it's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
So I'm going to make a motion. I don't usually make motions, but I'm going to make a motion to approve Resolution 26033, recommending the Town Council approve the use permit and allow outdoor seating on the rear patio and garden, and then also that they allow for the projecting sign unlit until a time in the future when we review the sign ordinance. Sorry, couldn't find that word. We review the sign ordinance and perhaps allow it at a later time to be glowing or lit from the inside, with exception.
I second that.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That is approved with conditions. So moving on, we have administrative items. The first one is to consider and appoint a zoning and design review board member to serve as the chair and vice chair positions for a one-year term.
And this item, who would like to go ahead? Me? This item's being brought forth, you guys. The board has not reassigned chair and vice chair in a period of time. This typically with other bodies happens at the first meeting of the year.
Okay.
So staff has brought this forward for that assignment to be made. And subsequently, 9B provides an update to the bylaws.
Okay. Okay. So we're doing both of those things.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we nominate our president? I mean, what's the procedure to fulfill this requirement?
There isn't a strict way to go about this. Some boards are fairly informal. Maybe each of you wants to have a chance to throw your hat in the ring, or maybe only one person is interested. Maybe you bully someone into being nominated.
Okay.
Can we just nominate the two people that are already chair and vice chair?
Yes, you may.
And they can decline if they are to, want to give someone else a chance to have that golden opportunity.
What if we all decline? What happens then?
Well, we have one that's not here.
That's true.
I would note, I do think Member Henthorn should be present to be able to accept the nomination to be in the running. And under the Rosenberg's Rules of Order that you've adopted for parliamentary procedure, typically you would need a, what is the number? A 2/3 vote to close nominations. We can waive that here. You don't need to follow those strict rules. Otherwise, you're voting on who you're nominating, then you're voting to close the nominations, then you're voting to appoint. So it gets repetitive.
Yeah.
If you are a comfortable chair in your discretion with deviating from those rules, that's fine.
Wait, is it 2/3 vote of 5, which is 4 people, right? Because 2 3/5 is 60%.
Correct.
But does the the nominator go down to 4? Because there's 4 of us.
It would need to be unanimous of those present.
Okay.
But again, that is a procedural formality that is not going to, it is fine to be waived in your discretion. And I would just say we do have a few more folks in the audience. If they'd like to comment on it, I would suggest doing so before you act on your appointments.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on this item before us? Come on. Alan, I know you're thinking something.
They don't want to get involved.
I'm just kidding.
We need at least one comment.
Alan Tencher. So Thursday of next week, I'm going to face this exact thing on the Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, having served as chair, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that I'm planning to let somebody else take the helm. And the reason for that is these boards, to me, are developmental, to have people gain experience in public service and in rules of order. And so, anyway, you all do whatever you want, but that's what I'm thinking about for next Thursday.
Thank you.
I'll make a comment that you've been chair. I have been chair in the past, so I don't need to, not that it would be in consideration, but it's nice to be able to rotate it. So given that we have each of these, we can obviously pass the baton, as it were. Just putting that out there.
Do you want to pass the baton?
Paul Marciniak. I did in previous service chair on the Parks and Recreation Commission a few years ago before Alan. I think it is important that you rotate the chair as you have a board there and give people the consistency of keeping the board aligned and that everybody has the ability to lead and understand how it is to run a meeting. That makes it more valuable for each member in the group. So thank you.
Thank you. I might suggest that we table this until Henthorne is back.
That's what I think, yeah.
I was thinking that, too. Because there is a sort of a tenure base that you and I have been on the longest. Same time, right? We joined the same time? Yeah. I can't remember. It was 27 years ago. But then I think it was Tom and then
Thomas and then me.
Ken and then Carol.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that he's been on the longest without having, but, and then that then gives a chance to kind of rotate in. So I kind of would feel better if he was here for us to kind of consider that as an
I think that's a good idea. Can I move for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I move that we table this issue until all board members are present.
I second that. No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Okay.
That, as opposed to rock, paper, scissors every meeting to see who will chair in that particular one. I was going to suggest that, but you got ahead of me.
And then the B item is to receive a report on proposed amendment to Zoning and Design Review Board bylaws governing board chair and vice chair appointment. So have we deferred that as well, or should we cover that this evening?
So I said that's just moving the time when we do this to the first meeting of every year moving
I see.
forward.
Okay.
And I would note, too, I believe this is a town council action that would actually amend the bylaws. This was being presented to you as sort of an informational, just so you know, that the town council would be considering changing this language in your bylaws. But they are the body with authority to make the amendment.
Okay. So we can recommend to them that they make that amendment.
I think at this point it's comments. We'd bring back your comments. If you don't like it, you don't have a formal role in recommending anything, but we would take your comments back.
Okay. All right. So we're good on that? Do you have the comments that you needed from us?
Sure.
Okay. Should we move on to staff and board reports?
The only thing I have to report at this time is that staff did issue a temporary use permit for the farmers market to occur at the Ranch Market 2. This is the first temporary use permit they've got to be able to do this. It's only going to be on Sundays. It's the only one they get. So the next thing, if they want to keep doing this moving forward, they will need to get a use permit amendment to make it a permanent fixture there.
Okay.
When's that starting again?
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure. I thought it was going to maybe start last Sunday, but maybe it's this Sunday. Okay, this Sunday.
Good. Excellent. All right. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, fellow members of boards.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Feed off of each other's ideas. It's like one person says something